to Welcome to My World with Nat, Relocation Concierge. I'm always excited. I say this every time, but Tanessa is here with me today. We are going to talk all things DR, all things about relocating, moving. But just before we got on, you shared with me that you're here with your 3 kids and husband.
We are.
And from Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I have to say, my first East Coasters on the show. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective. But I guess the first thing I always love to know is, like, what inspired you to do this? Like, to really...
So my husband and I have talked about being bi-coastal. I'm from Vancouver Island. He's from Cape Breton Island. We always talked about doing 6 and 6 on the coast of Canada.
Yeah.
Right? We always talked about that and tried to figure out and build our lives in a manner in which we could do that. Then I quickly realized that no matter where you are in Canada, I don't love the winter. And
oh my gosh, we're gonna be fast friends forever.
So we'd really been looking at like how to build our lives in a way that we could travel with our family. I believe we homeschool, we more so like life school, unschool. And I really realized that as transient people, we've lived across the country, we've moved across the country 3 times ourselves. We wanted to then extend that into other countries and provide real world schooling for ourselves and for our families. And so we've been thinking about it for a really long time, and just when COVID hit and we realized it wasn't going anywhere anytime soon, we wanted to still be able to live our lives in a way that felt good instead of trapped. And we felt very trapped in Canada, we felt very trapped in Nova Scotia, and we wanted to just do what we could do to get out. So COVID was the push that we needed to come seek sunshine and education and experience and see what else was out there.
And I think that a lot of families have been pushed a little bit by what's going on, what I like to call the worldly, our current worldly situation, right? Have been pushed, and sometimes we need a little bit of that push to create, and it's all about the discomfort, right? Because it is very uncomfortable to think, okay, I'm going to move not only in a within a country, but to a different country that, you know, their first language is not what we speak back home, and is not ours, but, you know, creating the openness for it is fantastic. So I applaud you for that. So you landed here in November. November of last year. And what were your first thoughts? Like, did you have like a oh my gosh moment?
Well, we landed in Punta Cana because initially we were when we were booking our flights, we were traveling with our dog. And then we had a whole experience with that she's actually still back in Canada going to come out. So we landed in Punta Cana. We had all of our luggage. We sold everything just to be able to travel. And not with like a permanency here. We're going to move here. We're not going back to Canada right now. So we don't want to have ties that will force us to come back. So we show up. We've got a massive amount of luggage, 3 small children. And we're like, okay, what do we do? So we hadn't prearranged anything because
oh my gosh, really?
We just don't roll like that.
Okay.
So we found somebody at the airport who spoke English and got us a private van and took us just to a resort outside of the airport. Stayed overnight at the resort, and our aha moment was that day going out onto the beach and watching our kids just play. You know, we had left in the middle of a snowstorm, so we got to sunshine and the kids were like, this is amazing. And so watching them run on the beach and just and truly like feel that de-stressing, that collective sigh of we felt that. We were, you know, Punta Cana was beautiful, the beaches were stunning, that was great. Then the next day reality kind of set in when we had a 6-hour drive to get here. And the drive started out with like, we got a text at 3 o'clock in the morning from Nino, who was our prearranged taxi driver, saying my car broke down. I'm sending my cousin, don't worry, he's safe. And I'm like, what does that mean? I have no other anything but just to trust this. Okay, I'm here for the ride. Okay, you're safe. All right, I got you. So we loaded up and we came here, and we had prearranged like our accommodations.
Okay.
So we landed at our villa, and our property manager met us, and she's like, there's no power to the villa. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, it happens often. For whatever reason, the batteries were drained. Don't worry, I'll set you up in the condos for the night. So I'm like, okay. She also then paid for our, lent us the U.S. funds because he wanted money in U.S. and we only had pesos. So she paid for that, and I was like, wow, people here are really generous. You don't know us. We just landed. Thanks for the $400. Like, it was great. Went and stayed the night in the condo, and still very much enjoying it. And then we were in vacation mode for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
And I think that piece is really important because people arrive, and I think for us, one of the moments we sort of went into work mode right away. and we didn't give ourselves the time to really decompress. We took moments to decompress, but I don't think we took that whole sort of, okay, now we're going to take 2-3 weeks and just vacation, enjoy the space that we had. And that piece, I think people should know, is important to.
It's stressful.
It's that we left, and then it's the transition period.
Totally.
Okay, so now you're in this villa.
So we're in this villa, and keep in mind, we came from a 4-bedroom house, 2,000 square feet, 5 acres, livestock, homestead, all the things. We are now in a 2-bedroom and like an extra room of your living room, dining room.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's got a pool and a yard, and that's great, but the inside space is very small. So we had to make some fast adjustments of our kids have never shared a room, and at that time they were 2, 4, and 7. Never shared a room before, and now all 3 of you are sharing a room. There's no separate space for anybody, and we're used to having space to be ourselves and to be ourselves in private. We always say, like, I need some alone time.
Yeah.
So there's no real space to have alone time, so that's still been a challenge that we've kind of been overcoming. We actually dedicated one of our closets to, like, my oldest son's play space.
Yeah.
And then I quickly realized once we got there, like, we don't have an oven. I'm a baker. I'm a homesteader. I am a from scratch organic cooker, and I feed my family. That's how I show a lot of my love for them. That's my love language, and that's also how I connect with a lot of my community, right?
Yes.
I cook for them. We have dinner parties, all the things.
Yeah.
So we readjusted on the fly. We started using our barbecue.
Yeah.
You just use what you can.
And I think that's, you said the word, right? Adjustment. You have to be able to be flexible and adjust as you. So what are some of your things that you fell in love with? Or, the things you're like, this is like fantastic.
The fact that people, even though you don't speak the same language as them, or many of them, they will try to speak your language, and we try brokenly to speak their language, but they're helpful.
Yes.
Like I said, we got to our apartment, we got to our villa, and our landlord was like, oh, here's the money. We had banking issues.
Yes.
Initially, and PayPal issues and all the things, because like everybody realized, oh, your account say you're in Canada, but your IP address says you're in the Dominican. This is fraud. We had to call our bank no less than 10 times in a matter of like 3 weeks, because every time we would do a transaction, they would block it. Couldn't use our credit cards, couldn't use our bank, like nothing. So that was incredibly challenging. I had spent collectively probably 30 hours on hold trying to get things figured out. But people are incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
We had friends that were here already, like new friends, we didn't know them before, that took us to get our phone set up, took us grocery shopping. Do you need this? Do you need this? We then had extra, housewares that we passed on to other people.
Yeah.
So the community in that sense was great, that everybody pulled together to make it so that this isn't like really challenging. The community of the Dominicans, the culture of the Dominicans is incredibly helpful. And I felt safe for my children.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I know that our daughter feels so safe that she feels like she wants to walk around Casa Linda on her own, which is not going to happen. But I'm happy that she feels that way, though. So that means a lot to me. And I think, we lived near the school where she went, and part of me feels like I probably could have let her walk to school on her own, but, it was like a bonding thing that we had every morning. And we walked to school with her, and the novelty of that. So those are the great things. And I think that it's really important in conversations I've been having with other moms and women and dads as well, that, it's not all rainbows and Skittles when you come down.
No.
The painting is not always so bright.
Yep.
So what are some of the, so you just mentioned the banking challenges, and I know that you're not the first one. We had our own banking challenges. I actually have a video coming out to talk about banking, because so that people really understand what you need to do. Calling your bank, letting them know that your child. It's such a small detail, but it will save you a lot of time. What have been, besides banking, some of the things, and the oven, obviously, that were, I don't want to say disappointed, but maybe you felt like, really,
I didn't expect.
I'm always like, really, that's my, like, really, you know.
So the cost of electricity.
Yeah,
especially
big one.
Especially moving from a cold climate to a hot climate, and having to be very mindful of like your actual comfort level. So that was a big thing.
Yeah.
The fact that we came in the winter, it doesn't feel like winter, but it's winter.
Yes.
And couldn't swim at the beaches a lot of the time because the waves were so high and so rough That was a big thing for us because we were super excited to be like, oh, we're going to beach bum it all the time and this and that. The driving has been incredibly, like, I'm comfortable to drive now, but like parking and getting honked at all the time and having motos like just scare the crap out of you all the time. That was a big adjustment for me. Having to not being able to drink the water, having to buy water.
Yeah, that one we knew about because we'd traveled here before and we had lived here like on vacation.
Yeah.
We had traveled here on vacation. We Airbnb'd it and we had to have you can't drink the water from the tap, which when you come from a country where water is filtered and you can just use the tap water, it is a big change.
It's a big change because also, I mean, I'm somebody, like, we don't use plastic in our life. Ever. Like, ever. I have beeswax wraps. We don't use, saran wrap, nothing. I use glass containers. So all of that was really I'm like, I don't drink water out of plastic, and all of my water comes in plastic, and I know that it's been sitting on the side of the road, baking in the sun. Like, things like that were we've now found a fill station, so, like, I'm not worried about it. But again, that was mitigated by, like, our pool guy, who's also our gardener, would go and offer to pick it up for us and bring it back to us on his moto before we had a car and could get it ourselves. So that helpfulness helps to mitigate and manage a lot of the discomfort, because wherever you have discomfort, somebody else has expertise.
1,000%.
And you can just borrow their knowledge and they're happy to help you out, right? Like, so it's been a really good marriage of that.
Yeah, and we lived in the condos near where you are now, and the security guards were so good to us and so helpful. And I mean, obviously, it's their expertise, and there's an exchange of service kind of thing, but generally speaking, like, good heartedness of wanting to help you. So, and we still use some of their services because they're nearby and they can be helpful. The driving has definitely been something that comes up with a lot of the people I've been speaking to on the videos, and for myself, I started driving right away, so I built the comfort right away. And I think somebody gave me the advice of stay between the two lines and you'll be fine, and let everybody else sort of go around you. And if they want to pass me, I let them pass me, and so be it. But you also, I mean, I'm from Montreal, where driving is, you have to be a defensive driver all the time. Here, it's like heightened by 10, I think. It's crazy. But
you know what it does, though, is, and I've had this conversation a lot recently about accountability. So in Canada, we know the rules of the road will keep us safe.
Yeah.
We depend so heavily on other drivers following the rules that we absolve ourselves of personal responsibility and we distract a drive. We'll text, people have drinks, you feed your kids, you holler at your kids, all the things. You're not completely present.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's about personal accountability and personal responsibility. You have to know that nobody else is following the rules, so you have to, or
and everybody's okay with it.
Totally.
Everybody's okay with it. And because everybody's okay with it, you sort of go along with it. The one that I have a hard time with is, and I'm sure this will align with your values, is, we have a beautiful trail behind here, and if I took you behind to show you, you'd be amazed. The garbage.
I know, the pollution. The
pollution is heavy, and I actually have somebody, a local, coming in next week to do a second video with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Why it's not a priority here. They use a lot of styrofoam, and there's a reason behind it. That part of their world has not caught up with.
It's not evolved to where we are.
Yeah.
But you know what? And I'll have to say, if you look at certain parts of Canada, overall we have this idea that it's so clean and it's this and that, but it's not. I've lived all across Canada, and you will go to a lot of native reserves.
Yes.
And you will see that they don't have the infrastructure in place. They don't have the resources in place.
They don't have clean water.
They don't have clean water. So therefore, garbage collection
2022
and separation isn't going to be a priority. So we need to stop thinking that this doesn't exist where we live.
No,
and recognize that it exists everywhere. And even though it's a priority for us, it may not be a priority for them. But you know what we do is we still separate our garbage. We separate it in bags, put it in the big bag, because we know that there are people who separate the garbage and take it out. So we're like, okay, well, because we don't have recycling facilities, we'll recycle within the garbage, and that way you don't have to pick through our compost to get to our bottles.
Yeah, I do that too. I separate bottles and plastic or whatever that we have.
Yeah.
So it's not always rainbows and Skittles, and if you knew then what you know now, and then we were talking about this before we started recording, what are some of the things that maybe you feel people should know about coming, or they're sort of sitting on the edge of their seat right now, listening to us and wondering, okay, I really want to do this. you know, I have an answer for them, but you know, what are, which is the obvious one, they'll find out later, but what are some of the things like you're like, oh, if I could have known this, or
I would say, first of all, for people who have like dietary restrictions,
okay, yeah,
allergies, things like that, be aware that it is more challenging to find what you need to eat. You know, there's a lot of people that are vegan that find it hard to eat here unless you're making everything from scratch.
Yeah.
We, again, like we buy organic things, which are really hard to find here and more expensive. Anything imported is going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
So being mindful of not coming here with your North American mindset and applying that to the Dominican life.
So important.
So many expats come here from North America and want to live a North American life in the Dominican, and that will create friction and frustration from what you're doing. Like, it will just stop you dead in your tracks, and just don't come with any expectations, really. Be open to the experience, allow it to happen for you, not to you. And really like celebrate the fact that you're on an adventure and you're here to be open to how other people live.
Amen to the adventure.
Yeah, like don't take your way of living and impose it upon other people and be frustrated because they don't live the same way as you do.
Yeah.
Recognize that you're coming into their home. You're coming into their
1000%,
space, and do it with an open mind and an open heart.
Yeah.
And everything is figure outable. The banking was frustrating. We figured it out.
Yeah.
You know, like water delivery was frustrating. We figured it out. Not having an oven. Well, guess what? We used our barbecue. You need to recognize that you're stronger and more capable.
There's solutions.
There's solutions. I'm a solutionizer, so this has just been really good for me to then strengthen my solutionizing abilities.
And so this sense of, there are definitely a lot of expats. There's been an influx. And I think that people are, one of the things I think that people need to remember is that people are coming down, and for us, we just sort of took our life in Canada and brought it here. So our life, our routine has not changed really. I still get up in the morning and cuddle with my daughter, and then I make her breakfast and take her to school, and we do all the same things. And I think that if you're still on vacation mode, you have to remember that the other families maybe are not in that same, and that it's okay. And what I've been telling people is you got to do you.
Yeah.
You have to do what works for you, because everybody else is doing what works for them.
Yeah.
And it's a hard lesson to learn, because you think, oh, I'm going to be part of this
Big
community.
But people have their own lives.
Yeah.
And their own values, and recognizing that because we share the same common thread of being an expat doesn't mean that we share the same common thread of how we live our lives. And that was like a big letdown for me, because I had bought into the, oh, it's a bunch of like-minded people collectively living out, you know, this dream. And I was like, okay, so like-minded to me meant like fully like-minded, not just we got out of Canada like-minded. And
okay, yes, I see what you're saying.
I came here and I was like, y'all don't care about the things that I care about. You know, like, I'm not a drinker. A lot of the activities include, like, let's go for drinks. And I'm like, that's not me. I have young children, so, like, nighttime activities where people are like, you guys want to come for dinner? I'm like, nope, my kids turn sour by, like, 4 o'clock in the afternoon if we leave. So again, stay true to you. Do what feels good for you. Recognize that you're not going to fit with everybody just because you are Canadians. It's like, you know, we're still individuals. And in a big group of people, there's going to be people and activities and things that you bump up against that aren't great.
And so that leads me to share a little bit about that idea we were talking about before of alignment.
Yes. And
knowing what you want, but knowing that I just forgot.
Like the live that we wanted to do?
Yeah. So more of, you know, the realities are there, you know, and it's not perfect.
No.
I guess that's what it boils down to.
But and again, I have to say though, but like, if your life in Canada was perfect, you wouldn't be leaving.
Yeah, it's true.
And if things were like, first of all, perfect is a fragment of your imagination. Let's just call it for what it is. And the pursuit of perfection will actually lead you to paralysis.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever perfect. No relationship, no child, no human, no job, no anything.
Yeah.
So if you look at it and just find beauty in the adventure, not just seeking the destination, as cliche as that sounds, that's really the truth of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, my top strength is positivity, so it's been easy for me to do this. My husband had never ever thought that we would be here. Like, he'd left Canada once, and he's like, this is a big stretch for me. And I'm like, you know what? Living in Canada was harder for me than living here, because I have the freedom and flexibility to figure things out in a different way.
Yeah.
There are so many societal norms and rules that we buy into, and we're so afraid of like groupthink there.
Yeah.
We lose our individualism. And here, I can be me. And there's, and I have long-haired babies that, boys, that see other men with long hair and see other children and feel more accepted. People here are just so much more themselves.
There's more
because
sense of self here,
they're not worried about fitting in or impressing you or anything like that.
Absolutely.
I will say another thing that was like really hard to wrap your head around is if you think you can just come here and work. That's a whole nother conversation. But if you're coming, make sure that you have a bankroll behind you, or you have an online job or an online business, because the wages here are different. Opening a business here is different. Really do your research, as you would with anything else. But make sure that you don't get so caught up in the emotion and the excitement of like, I'm going to make this big move and it's going to be awesome. How are you fiscally going to take care of your life?
1000%, yeah. And I think that leads me to what I was trying to remember before was, what does sustainability look like here, right? And this was a question I got from somebody in another video I had done is, can I live here on, I think, $1,500 US a month? So I think...
Not as a family.
Probably not as a family.
Or not my family, anyway.
Not your family, and probably not mine either. Just accommodations alone.
Crazy.
You need to, so I have clients who... I found them a 2-bedroom in Sosua for $650 a month. That was under their $700 budget, for a rental. But I mean, this is, and actually very surprising, like it was a bit vintage, but it worked. But it worked for them.
Yeah.
Anything is possible. However, what are your eating habits? Electricity is a huge one. I mean, we're from Quebec where it's like cheap. And here it's we pay way more than we ever did per month back in Montreal. So planning like a budget before you come is probably
and that's a good rule for life, period.
Well, it's a good rule for life, but if you're taking on this, especially doing this,
there's so many unknowns.
Right? And things that you wouldn't consider being, for example, we came to this villa. They didn't tell us about the propane tanks, which is about a $40 a month. Well, $40 US,
also,
yes.
Like,
thank you. We're all talking US dollars. Yeah. That's right. But like, it's not a big deal that we have to fill them up.
But it's an extra.
But it's $40 that we didn't budget for. So those are all things that get covered when I work with clients, making sure that everybody understands everything that is going to be happening when they arrive. But I think there's always a disclaimer of be ready for anything unexpected, being asked to move, being asked to move more than once, or choosing to move because
your neighbors are noisy.
Your neighbors are noisy. The you need more space.
You don't have an oven.
You don't have an oven. All of those things, and be okay with it. Yep. In North America, you wouldn't move that often. Probably you would
for sure
probably have you would be grounded a lot easier. So
well, and on that topic too, like in North America, specifically Canada is what I'll speak to.
Yeah,
we have, as a renter, you have more rights than an owner.
Yeah, in Quebec, I don't know, but I'm not an expert on the other provinces, but I know in Quebec, yes, you have way more rights.
And it's different here. Like we have friends that rent. I mean, just about everybody rents, but like anything that breaks down in their house, they're told that they need to pay for. They are told, and we don't. Like we have a property manager and a house manager. So our house manager comes and fixes it, but he's fixing our toilet leaks and can't get a wax seal. So he's like, I siliconed it. I didn't do a good job. It'll probably leak again. I'm like, I'm just not used to those as answers, like.
Or Dominican time.
Or Dominican time.
We'll be here this afternoon. What does that mean? Sometime this afternoon.
Or maybe in 3 days.
Yeah.
So,
thank you. Any last tips?
It's worth it. People will often ask me that. They're like, knowing what you know, would you still do it? And I'm like, absolutely, because I am forever changed as an individual for understanding how people live differently in the world.
Yes.
I've developed skills and strengths. I've recognized ugly characteristics about myself that I may not have been exposed to. And I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible for being able to figure things out in the moment. I have 3 kids and a husband who are like depending on me to figure things out. I can't just have a come apart every time I come up against a challenge, right?
No.
So it forces you to be.
You'll probably have a
next
good
level.
couple of cries when you're here, though, because
Oh,
I've had a couple. So
For
you
sure.
know,
Like,
I mean,
for sure you will. Not even probably, like, for sure you will. But recognize that there's a community of people that you can reach out to and
Oh,
say,
yes.
I'm having a really hard day. How did you manage this?
Yeah.
And if you're coming as a family, there are so many moms here. And I mean, like, we're the gatekeepers of the family. So
Yeah.
we're the ones that share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We actually deal with it often before our family even recognizes that it's
Yeah.
there. So if you feel like you're overwhelmed and feel like you're struggling, reach out.
Yeah, you gotta
Reach-
put your hand up and say,
Yeah,
I'm
reach
having
out-
a bad day. Yeah.
Reach out for coffee and you will be overwhelmed in a
Yeah.
good way by the amount of love and support that comes your way from people that you haven't even met yet.
Yeah. I used the analogy yesterday with a friend that I used to work on cruise ships. And when you met somebody from Canada, like, there was this instant bond, you
Yes.
know, that, you know, even though we're not from the same coast or whatever, there was just like this instant, like,
Connection.
okay, connection. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
I got shivers. Once again, welcome to my world with Nat, Relocation Concierge. If you are thinking of making this move, you're not sure, you want to have an information session, you can book that with me. But if you are deciding to make this move and you don't want to do it on your own and you want a lot of help and to make it easy and simplify things, reach out, book in the link that's below in my calendar, and we'll see how we can be a good fit together. Whatever you choose to do, have an incredible day today, folks, and I'll see